All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to tackle a really wild idea, one that might challenge everything you think you know about reality itself. What if the universe isn't made of stuff at all? What if what if it's actually being selected, moment by moment, from an infinite ocean of pure, raw uncertainty? I mean, really think about this question. Forget about atoms, quarks, and energy for just a second. What if everything you see, this screen, your own hands, the stars in the sky, what if all of it isn't the default state of things, but is simply the one pattern that was stable enough to survive against all the other chaotic possibilities? You know, traditionally, physics tells us the universe is built from fundamental things, these little building blocks. But this new view, it completely flips that on its head. It says the universe is actually made of patterns, arrangements that were just consistent enough to stick around. So in this model, substance isn't the cause of reality, it's the result of a winning pattern. To really get this, we have to go back to the very beginning. But not to a big bang packed with matter and energy. No, we've got to go even further back, to a state of pure, undivided potential before anything was actually anything at all. This brings us to a whole new way of thinking about zero. This is an emptiness, or a vacuum. It's a state of zero distinctions. Just try to imagine that for a second. A condition where there's no inside versus outside, no here versus there. It's not a void. It's a state of pure, raw potential, the capacity from which any possible reality could eventually bubble up. So how in the world do you get a universe from that? Well, it seems to happen in three logical steps. First, out of that unified sea of potential, a distinction is made. The very first this versus that. But a distinction by itself is totally meaningless. It only becomes real when it creates a relationship where each side defines the other. I mean, think about it. Up has absolutely no meaning without down. They literally create each other. And this right here is the key insight. The very first act of creation wasn't making stuff, it was making a distinction. The ability to just be different is the true bedrock of our reality. Everything else, all the matter, space, and time we see, is built on top of that one simple act. Okay, so distinctions can pop up out of nowhere, but why doesn't that just create a universe of pure, random chaos? Why is our reality so orderly and structured? There has to be some kind of engine filtering all of that infinite possibility into the stable cosmos we actually live in. So what is it? Stable consistency is what survives uncertainty. This sentence says it all. The universe isn't orderly because of some grand blueprint. It's orderly because out of a literal infinity of messy, chaotic patterns, only the ones that were stable and self-reinforcing managed to last. Order isn't the plan, it's simply the sole survivor. Now, the technical term for this process is relational closure. And that's just a fancy way of saying that a pattern becomes so interconnected that it literally holds itself together. You know, think of an atom or a galaxy or a living cell. They're not just random piles of parts. They are self-maintaining systems. And this tells us something really profound. Reality isn't what it looks like. It's what survives. This idea completely reframes how we think about the laws of nature. They aren't these rigid, unchanging rules that were imposed on the universe from the outside. They're more like a river carving a canyon over billions of years. They're the universe's oldest, most successful habits, patterns that are so incredibly stable and persistent that, to us, they look like unbreakable laws. So, if reality is just a collection of these super successful habits, can this idea explain the biggest things we see? Let's take a look at how this engine of survival might actually build the very fabric of our universe, space, time, and even gravity itself. Okay, let's start with something familiar, gravity. Einstein's general relativity is amazing. It tells us that gravity isn't really a force pulling things together. It's the actual shape of space-time itself. Mass and energy warp the fabric of space-time, and that curvature tells everything else how to move. But our model forces us to ask a much deeper question. Einstein explained how space-time curves, but he never really explained why we have a space-time that can curve in the first place. What is it that allows this fundamental fabric of reality to even exist? And the answer this model gives is, wow. It says gravity isn't fundamental at all. Imagine that stable patterns, like a planet or a star, create these zones of extreme consistency. Let's call it a region of low frustration. It turns out that less stable things are just naturally drawn towards these zones of higher stability. So in this view, gravity isn't a pull, it's the universe's natural tendency to settle down, to move from less consistent patterns toward more consistent ones. It's a preference for stability. And check this out. This framework gives us an incredibly elegant way to think about black holes. A black hole isn't some cosmic monster tearing up spacetime. It's a region that has achieved a state of almost perfect relational closure. It's a pattern so incredibly stable and self-contained that literally nothing can escape its influence. It's the ultimate survivor in the cosmic landscape. And this is where things get truly mind-bending. This one single principle, this one flow from uncertainty to stability, it doesn't just build stars and galaxies. We can see its fingerprint on absolutely everything, from the tiniest quantum particles all the way up to life itself. All of a sudden, quantum entanglement, that spooky action at a distance that totally baffled Einstein, it starts to make a lot more sense. I mean, if everything originally emerged from one single undivided state, then it's actually natural that some things would keep a deep connection, even after they look separate to us. Entanglement isn't spooky, it's a fossil, a reminder of the universe's unified origin. So then, what is matter in this model? Well, it's not the fundamental building block we thought it was. It's more like a printout of the universe's favorite stable patterns. Imagine the universe has this whole landscape of possible forms, and matter is just what you get when energy settles into the deepest, most stable valleys in that landscape. And what's truly amazing is that this one elegant process of stabilization doesn't stop with atoms and molecules. The very same principle that builds a star is also at work in those incredibly complex, dynamic patterns that we call life. Just think about the role of water in a living body. It's not just a liquid, it's the perfect medium for life's complicated patterns to play out. Water acts like a kind of sandbox, allowing the bioelectric blueprints of an organism to be shared and built upon. It's the stage where the stable patterns of biology can dynamically assemble themselves and, crucially, repair themselves. So, when you start to look at the universe through this lens, everything changes. The cosmos is no longer just this collection of static objects just sitting there. It becomes a living, dynamic process of constant selection and survival. This changes the very questions we ask. We shift from asking what stuff things are made of to asking what pattern is being selected. We move from looking for a force to understanding what stabilization is happening. It's a huge pivot from a universe of mechanics to a universe of information and survival. So, if you had to boil this entire idea down to one sentence, it would be this. Reality is not built from substances, but from the selective stabilization of uncertainty. Everything we know, everything we see, from space and time to matter and life, is simply the visible result of this one deep cosmic process. And that leaves us with one final, kind of mind-blowing thought. If reality is just the collection of patterns that have managed to survive so far, it means the process of creation isn't over. It's happening right now, all around us. So the ultimate question is, what new, more complex patterns of existence are still out there, just waiting to stabilize, waiting to become real?